Hi, Blandine Destremeau. You are our senior researcher at the French National Center for Scientific Research and in charge for the Power to Use project about the policy institutional factors of youth exclusion inclusion in the Southeast Mediterranean. The general media and public authorities around the Mediterranean are very keen on speaking about and address Arab youth. As a researcher, how are you considering the youth category? Is it a neutral category?
First thing I want to say is that we are two people coordinating the work package. Myriam Catusse, who is also a researcher at the French National Center for Scientific Research, is doing it along with me. No category is neutral. First of all, it's not really a category. The youth as a category was constructed for research, but we don't really know what it means and we want to investigate that. We make the hypothesis that depending on the context and the national context, but also the class context and the gender context to a large extent, being young means very different things, and you can sometimes be young until you're 40 if you don't succeed, for instance, to get married or to get a job or to move out of your parents' house for lack of resources. So we don't take the youth category as a category defined by age, but rather from a sociological point of view. This is the first thing. The second thing is that youth is crossed by many different lines which determine different experience of being young, if again being young can be defined as such. We want to take into consideration what we call the intersectionality of various social relations in which people are embedded, such as gender relationships, but also class relationships, religious relationships, residencies such as rural or urban environment, war context, many different contexts which actually determine what it is to be young or not, but what it is to be young in various contexts, seen from experience. The category of youth in this project, we thought, was also quite overdetermined by youth being a problem or having caused problems, and we want to try to go beyond that to see the other youth, the youth who are not problems or who don't go through problems. What I mean is that youth can also be seen as a resource, and depending on context it may be, such as educated youth, for instance. Youth are sometimes considered as victims of specific context or structures. Youth may be seen as an opportunity, so there is also a competition to capture youth for employment, but also for political legitimacy, for support, for clientelism. So we are looking into that. So we're not taking youth as a category. As such, we are really very strongly pushing for a deconstruction of the category and trying to redefine it from experience and from fieldwork mainly.
Okay, and my second and last question is about the change that happened with the with the Arab revolutions. What happened to the youth category?
Wherever the revolution took place, I'm not sure if it's really relevant to still call it a revolution, but yeah, wherever the events took place, the youth came up as a social category, I think. But in some of the countries that are concerned by this project, 2011 doesn't mean anything. So we sort of widened it to take into consideration historicity of, first of all, the youth in public space, or the youth in social life or economic life on one hand, and on the other hand, the youth as a category in media, in representations, or in discourse, which is different. In some countries, the youth emerged as a category for public action and public policy, which is our main focus. 50 years ago, like in Tunisia, for instance, Tunisian government, after the independence, took care of the youth. They had Ministry of Youth, and they were very careful of incorporating the youth and embedding the youth, perhaps as a heritage from the French occupation. In other countries, they were not taken into consideration, and it's more recently that they were actually, because because they served as a problem, taken care of, quote unquote. So we are taking into account historicity, but again leaving it open to historicity being the product of specific events, such as the upsurge of 2011, or processes, or institutional path, like in Tunisia, for instance.
Okay. Thank you very much, Blandine.